Yeah, good.
Mandy Patinkin, you play Saul Berenson in Homeland, and last season your character got in on the action a little more than usual. That we're used to seeing him in seasons past. He was kidnapped by terrorists and used as leverage. Was it a significantly different experience for you shooting season 4 compared to previous years?
That's an interesting question. I would say it was far more intense. I was sort of on vacation at the beginning of the season, and then all of a sudden it hit the fan, so to speak. And we were very long hours in unusual locations, and very intense physically and very intense emotionally. But it was a challenge I loved, so it was a lot of fun.
As you mentioned, that there's a particularly grueling episode for Saul where after he's kidnapped, he escapes, but he ends up being chased down and recaptured. And we rarely get to see Saul, in the field like that, engaged in a lot of that action. Did those in particular take a long time to shoot?
A long time? No more time than any of the other scenes that we do take. Everything is allotted a certain amount of time. If we're outside in a mountainous condition or on locations that are a little more challenging, certainly that would take more time. If there's more background people, if there are helicopters involved or cranes involved with getting drone shots from high above, or so all of those things are time consuming. We have to do them over and over and over again for different angles and different points of view, and for what Kerry might be watching from a drone up above, and what the real-time action is. So it's but it's a routine that we always get into. It's not that dissimilar than if we're in the ops room, shooting. I shoot you, they shoot me, we shoot you, we shoot the monitors that have green screens in. They put the green screen in later because they usually haven't shot that part, and so it's just a routine.
Another big change, of course, was the show moved production to Cape Town, South Africa in season 4. How did just that change of locale, affect how things felt on set?
Well, initially I was, a bit apprehensive. I had never been to Cape Town or South Africa. It was far away from home. You certainly couldn't commute. So we were a little apprehensive, my wife and I, but we ended up absolutely falling in love with the people of Cape Town. The place, it may well be one of the most beautiful places on earth. The shooting part was wonderful, and the crews were wonderful, and the people of Cape Town. But it was really my wife's extraordinary ability. She meets one person, she meets 12 people from that one person. So we met people from the townships, from the political world, from the arts world. We met people from all walks of life. My cousin by marriage is Helen Lieberman, who runs an organization 50 years old called Ikamva Labantu that takes care of children and elderly people in the townships. Extraordinary. She's known as the Mother Teresa of South Africa. I didn't even know her before I got there. She is my relative by marriage. So, they met us the minute we got there, and they took us around like mom and dad would. And then Catherine met the world and brought the world to my home. And then we brought other people from our homeland home to meet these new people that we met. And it's also a most heartbreaking place because of the dream that was never imagined but realized when Mandela came to be a free man, and then he became president, and the hopes were high, and now things are in a precarious state again in terms of the disparity between the haves and the have-nots. And that's very painful and frustrating for people who had that dream in front of their eyes, and then it just sort of disappeared and they can't get a hold of it. It's a little more painful than even having the dream in the first place. So it was an amazing life experience. And this year we're going to Berlin for the 5th season. So, it's a long time. You're away for 6 months or more. And I've never been to Berlin. And because of the South Africa experience, I'm really looking forward to it now. I'm far less apprehensive. It was very different. The first 3 years, we mainly shot in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then we would spend a week or 2 weeks or a month in Israel doing those locations. So the first time, season 4, was very far away for the whole season. And it's going to be the same situation in a different location this time Berlin for season 5.
So having had that intense inspiring experience in South Africa while you were there, was it sad to leave at the end of the season?
Very sad. I think we finished shooting, I don't know, around around November 17th. I didn't fly home till December 11th. I stayed another month. I went to the mountains to just be alone, walk around. There's a place called the Cedarburg Mountains, about 3 hours from Cape Town, and it reminds me of Moab, Utah, and the Grand Canyon. Maybe one of the most beautiful places I'd ever been. Every day I'd take long walks. Every day I walked. I walked to Table Mountain. The walks and the nature and the scenery and the people are just extraordinary. If you haven't been, you must go.
As you mentioned. Mm-hmm.
It's a 30-hour plane ride, but it's well worth it.
As you mentioned, the show is going to be moving to Berlin for the next season. Do you know when you start filming that?
I think we start filming the end of May. I'll get there I'll get there right at the beginning of June because I'm doing another job right up to the last minute.
So, is that something that you think you'd enjoy, in future seasons of the show, just getting to, play Saul in various, international locales and getting to explore different places with not only the character, but just yourself as just to see these places?
Yeah. I'm already addicted to it, just from both going to Israel and now South Africa. I even love North Carolina, but for such a long period of time as we were in South Africa, and now it's going to be for Berlin. And in Berlin also, if we have 7 or 10 days off, we can travel all over Europe if we want to get away and visit other places and explore. So I'm already spoiled because of South Africa. I'm addicted to it now, and I love riding on Saul's coattails.
Now, the change of scenery wasn't the only big change for Homeland in season 4. The Nicholas Brody storyline ended the previous year, and the show introduced a lot of new characters and story. What was it like exploring, this character with, different other co-stars, different character relationships?
Well, great fun. I mean, our writers are extraordinary. They bring in the most extraordinary actors to work with. So it's just a privilege all the way around and great fun. We have a lot of fun off stage. The more serious a scene is, usually the more we goof around. Unless you have to stay in a certain mode and, you make it clear that, I just need to, stay in character and concentrate. So I can't play for a few minutes and we'll have a play date later. But we're just blessed with the most extraordinary material to act and the most extraordinary coworkers to act with. It is just an embarrassment of riches all the way around. And wow, I never want it to end, frankly.
Saul has, sort of been the voice of reason for the show throughout the series thus far. But at the end of season 4, he actually made a sort of a.
I'd like you to explain that to my wife.
But at the end of the 4th season, he did make sort of a morally ambiguous kind of choice when he agreed to a deal with the terrorist who actually had kidnapped him and killed a lot of his colleagues. Did that surprise you, that story development, or have you always seen Saul as sort of a pragmatist?
Well, he was ready to sacrifice his life to save the lives of others. That is the person that I always thought Saul was. That is constant to his character. He would sacrifice himself to save Carrie Matheson because he believes that she, embodies his hope, his dreams, his optimism for humanity in terms of, with all of her difficulties, with all of her complications, he still believes that she is probably the best answer that he's ever met to making the world a safer place. As complicated as she may be, as complicated as the world may be, that's what he believes. So he would sacrifice his life to save her. And then when it came in the storyline that these terrorists could be released and then possibly create havoc in many other places, losing many other lives, he thought that was a no-brainer in his character to absolutely sacrifice his life to save the lives of others. He would have absolutely rather died than have those individuals released. And that was probably one of the greatest lows of his life, to be used as a pawn that way because of his mistake. And I would guess that he would spend the better part of his life trying to rectify that error and trying to make sure that any of those people that were released were contained as much as possible.
Arguably, the most important relationship on the show is between you and Claire Danes, is Carrie Mathison. They have kind of this familial bond and this tension. What is the rapport like between the two of you as actors compared to how the characters relate to each other on screen?
I adore her, and now she's a mother. She has a beautiful child. She's so much fun to be with. We play both on the set and we play off the set. She is as close as I've ever had to a daughter, and maybe one of the most glorious co-workers I've ever worked with. Her gifts are beyond description. She's my teacher, just as my two children are my teacher in real life, my son Isaac and Gideon. I take great pride in the fact that for some reason we have these extraordinary men in our lives, and they are my teachers now. Now that I'm 62 and they're in their 30s, they teach me. And Claire's no different. Claire teaches me grace. Claire teaches me simplicity. Claire teaches me gratitude. And I feel like the luckiest person every day that I'm in their presence, both my own children and my fictional children.
One of your chief rivals on the show over the last couple of seasons was CIA director Lockhart, who's played by Tracy Letts, who, like you, he has a theater background and is a Tony Award winner. How is it going toe-to-toe with a co-star who has some similar acting experience as you do?
Well, he's the best, and he's a good friend, and our biggest problem is not to crack up, because we get to giggle sometimes, and he is an absolute joy to work with. He is his wit is rapier-like. My favorite moment in every take with Tracy is after we finish saying the lines that are scripted, he always throws something, and he gives a moment so that the editors have what they need. And then he cannot stop himself from making some comment in character that usually makes me pee in my pants.
There is an especially tense scene between them. I remember last season or the season before where Saul actually has to lock him in a conference room to keep him from interfering in an operation. Was that the kind of scene where you might have cracked each other up?
Oh, without a doubt, it was great pleasure. And he was hilarious in that scene. I think his greatest challenge was not to be too funny.
Homeland, it deals with a lot of international politics, and even though it is a fictional story about the war on terror, do you think it's had any effect on your politics or the way you look at that subject?
I think so. I've always paid attention through the education of my wife to the political scene around the world. She has been my main teacher in that world. Homeland, it's impossible to participate on any level in Homeland, either as an actor or a viewer. Pardon me. It's impossible to participate and not have it affect you, because as you go to work every day, if you look at your phone to read the headlines in the newspaper, it's virtually what we're playing in 5 minutes in front of the cameras. If you listen to the radio, to NPR, you're hearing the same storylines virtually that you're embroiled in. If you're paying attention to the world, you're living in the storylines of Homeland. And that affects you. It affects, most of all, my spiritual nature. And by that, I mean a constant rekindling and prayer of hope for humanity and optimism for humanity, because listening to the dark side, either in the fictional world of Homeland or in the non-fictional world of my drive to work, I have no escape. So I'm constantly embroiled, as we all are all over the world, in the reality world we live in. And I have two choices: to become despairing or to be hopeful and do the best I can to make a difference. And in Homeland, I think if you said to me, well, how do you make a difference in Homeland? I would say probably in only one way that I can really try to do every second, which is to listen to whoever is speaking to me, my coworker, my enemy, my boss, my friend, my anybody, to listen, because I feel that the thing that's most lost in our world today is the ability to listen to each other. It's lost in our Congress. It's lost all over the world. And so if we, as a pretend world, can at least show that we're listening, even if we make mistakes, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think one of the great powers of film and television and any sort of art form like that is the ability to generate empathy for people you're not familiar with, points of view you're not familiar with, and so maybe even in this fictional world that you're creating with Homeland, you know, where there are characters who disagree with each other and sometimes disagree with themselves depending on the day, you know, you can sort of, you know, that openness can develop between, you know, different people in reality.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Numana Kar, who played Haqqani, has become a dear friend of mine. He lives in Berlin. I can't believe I'm going now to work in Berlin, that I get to be with Numan. We talk to each other all the time, you know, so, and we're supposed to be enemies in life, you know, and yet I adore this man. I also want to say something that always comes up when I'm talking about Homeland with people, that I think it's very important to understand in terms of what I think our job is as people creating a television show. We are not reality TV. We are not congressmen and senators and presidents. We are not warriors in real life. We are actors. And our job is to, if we do it well, is not to present to you the news. Our job is to have a poetical take on reality. And if you ask me, what does that mean? My hope is what it means is to look at reality through a lens that illuminates the human condition to a higher level, and to bring a greater understanding and hope and optimism to the nightmares of reality and alternatives to what seems to be a hopeless condition. That's what I think Shakespeare and Stephen Sondheim and the writers of Homeland, when they're at their best, do, which is to turn the darkness into light. That's what our job is.
Now, you know, you've had, you know, the show has been successful since it started, you know, in the ratings and in terms of on the awards scene, and you've been nominated for Emmys the last 2 years. You know, and you know, when you're nominated, you have to submit a sample episode of your best work to Emmy judges, a panel of judges that will, you know, evaluate the nominees. Do you know what episode from season 4 you might submit if you're nominated again?
I have no idea. I don't do that part. I let the other people do it. You know, I don't even know who does it. I have never submitted my own. I've never been asked which one did I want to submit. I don't know who does the submission, and I don't get involved.
Is that something that would be, you know, difficult for you to you know, if you had to look back and evaluate your own work?
I don't want to campaign for an award. You know, I love going to work. I love doing the work. If, you know, awards are complicated. Of course, it's wonderful if we get awards. It's good for business. It's good for the way you feel. But I also want to feel good if there's no award, if there's no nomination. You know, I want us all to feel good that how lucky we are, that we get to do this work we love. Who gets to do that in the world? Not a lot of people. And so I participate. You know, this interview is part of a participation without a doubt. And I literally say to the publicist of Homeland, you tell me what I have to do, what you need me to do. But I don't want to do stuff that you don't need me to do. Because part of my job, it's also a business, and I'm expected, literally contractually, to help publicize the show. So a lot of what these awards are is publicity for all of our work. And the more, you know, if you get awards, you get nominations, you're on the show, you're seen more. It just makes more people aware, and then they buy tickets. You know, so it's, you know, it's a business.
One of your earliest awards experiences was, winning the Tony Award for your role as Che in the first Broadway production of Evita, and you've been in lots of shows and productions since then. Do you have any plans to return to Broadway anytime in the near future?
Yeah, I've got a new show that I've been working on called The Last Two People on Earth, an apocalyptic vaudeville that I do with Taylor Mack. It's directed by Susan Stroman. We're actually going to do it for 3 weeks in Boston at ART, and we finish on May 12th through May 31st, and on June 1st I fly to Berlin and I start shooting Homeland. We've been doing it. We'll continue. We'll probably bring it to New York at some point. I just read a play. I'm reading another one tomorrow, but a play that a dear friend of mine wrote. I'm not allowed to say what it is at the moment, but I fell in love with it. He wants to do it. So we're looking for theaters in New York right now where we can do it during my hiatus. If I find a project I love, I'll do it anywhere. It doesn't have to be Broadway. I have been traveling, doing concerts. That's my other business. I sing show tunes, and I've been doing that for 25 years all over the world. So I like going to, the place no one's ever heard of as much as I like being on Broadway. I actually might like it a little more because people are so grateful that you've bothered to come to where they live and come to say hi. And I just love it. I love the traveling and I love the generosity of the audiences all over the world.
You've done so much film and television and theater work. Would you consider, theater and live performance your first love?
Yes, there's nothing like it. You get up and you watch the news before you go to the theater. Why? Because we've all lived in the world that day, and I need to know what's on the audience's mind. If something wonderful happened or if something tragic happened, I don't want all of a sudden hear or feel a different sound, or laughter when there normally isn't, or not silence when there normally is silence, or quiet, or lack of listening because there's distraction. And how that day is for all of us informs how that evening is. Even though it's the same words we did last night, it's a different play every night. And so, and to be with the audience, there's no editor. In film and in television, you work your butt off, you do all your preparation, you give them every possibility you can before the clock runs out or the sun sets, so the editors have, material to work with. In the theater, one shot only. So it's like one take, and you are in charge of the frame, and the audience is watching the whole picture all the time, and you're right there with them, and they breathe with you. That's my greatest sadness about film and television, that I don't get to be performing it in front of everybody who watches it. It's such a strange thing to me because I grew up in the theater. So in my opinion, we as the actors of Homeland should be in everyone's living room, not inside their TV, but right in front of it.
That's why I think, at the Emmys, it's sort of hard to do. At the Tonys, there are lots of live performances of the shows, and at the Grammys, there are live musical performances. I feel like at the Emmys, they need to have the casts of each show reenact scenes from their show on stage. That would just make the whole thing even better.
Oh my God, that's a very interesting idea. And just hearing it, I think it would be quite terrifying too. No matter how well you're prepared, there'd only be that one take, so it'd be very much like live television, a live performance. That's what Sidney Lumet cut his teeth on years ago. It was all live TV, and it had a kind of tension. And that's certainly what we try to do in front of the camera. I think a good director makes you feel like, we don't have all day to do this, so better get it in one, which just, kicks up the pressure. But I think that's a great idea. You ought to get that around.
Well, I will try to campaign that.
But I'm sure they'll try to parody it. I'm sure they'll try to make it fun or be commentary as opposed to the real deal. But it's an interesting. It is an interesting idea to, and certainly the nature of some of the shows that are out now going have a kind of content that that is pretty potent. It's not just light fluff.
Yeah, and it would be interesting, with so many different shows, these days involved with politics. You could have you as Saul Berenson and Kevin Spacey, as Frank Underwood, and then Julie Louis-Dreyfus as Selena Meyer. All these political characters all in one scene together.
Right, right, right.
Well, I want to, congratulate you again on the continued success of Homeland, and I want to wish you the best of luck at the Emmys in a few months, and with the next season, with the shows you've got on stage. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
Thank you, and I just want you to know it's been a pleasure, and this is a first for me, being at home doing it with my computer. I can't even believe that I was able to figure it out. So thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. It was great.
My kids will be very proud of me. Take care.
Now you too. Have a great day.
Now I have to figure out how to turn us off. Okay. We'll see you.
All right. See ya. There should be like an X button somewhere that should take you right out of it.
I'm worried that I'll end up in some other country. Okay. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.